It is time for our very first lecture video. Hopefully, presumably, you have already watched the welcome video, the one with the syllabus and everything, and where I told you that we would have lecture videos. Since we are not meeting this week and we have to cover 3 chapters this week, I have put all 3 chapters into one PowerPoint here, and I'm going to talk you through it. Some of these slides I'm just going to skip over and say, make sure you study this, make sure you read this. Other ones I'm going to go a little more in depth. I'm going to make this as concise as possible. I am very wordy, so it might not be super duper concise, but I'm trying. Also, I will somewhere during this lecture video tell you what you are to write about in your lecture assignment. It's just going to be somewhere random, and yeah, it's on purpose. It's to encourage you to actually listen to the whole thing, because my attitude is if I can sit here and make this for you, you should be able to view it, even if it's painful to watch sometimes. Yeah, I guess that's it. So here we go. I am going to bring it up here so you can see what we're doing. Bam. And then I go to slideshow. Whoa, there we go. So presumably you will be able to see me up in the corner and you will see the PowerPoint. Like I said, some of this I'm going to go in depth, some of it not so much. So just follow right along. Oh, and one other thing I forgot to mention on the welcome video, because I did it twice. I remembered it the first time. Don't think I remembered it the second time. Is that the textbook that we have for our class, I believe, is the 3rd edition, and the one I have all of the online stuff for is 4th edition. I just went ahead and used all of the 4th edition stuff. So there might be 1 or 2 chapters that don't perfectly match up, but for the most part, it's the same. So when you are doing the quiz and everything, feel free to use the stuff that I've put online to help you with it as well. All right, enough said. First, we are starting with chapter 1. This is basically telling you how to break down the words and what we are going to be doing. So literally the construction of medical words. First, what you need to remember is you have different words that are broken up. You have prefix, which means before, it's going to be at the beginning, hence the word pre. You have your root word, which is the main part. That's the main thing you're always going to have to know. And then the suffix. The suffix is what gets tacked on the end. When you are reading this throughout the text, if it's a prefix, it's going to show you like a couple of letters and then a dash. Root word is normally just exactly the way it is. And suffix is normally a dash and then the word. In anyone who's had me for Bio 123 or 124, I routinely talk about CYTE, like dash CYTE means site, that means cell. That is an example of a suffix. So I just wanted to put this here to get you to think about it. You can actually practice a whole lot of these words by making your own little puzzle pieces and then just put them together and then rearrange them. And it is a great way to study. We might do something like that in class. So for all of our medical terms, there is 1 or more roots. You always have at least 1 root word, because without a root word, you don't have a word. So the root provides the meaning of that medical term. So the example here is they say the word pneumonia has the root pneumon. That means lung or air. So if you know anytime you see P-N-E-U-M, that has to do with either lungs or air, that is going to help you figure out what the rest of the word means. Now, sometimes you will have something called a combining vowel. That means you will have your root word, and then you will have this vowel that will be added in order to turn it into the medical term. So when you see in your text where it's written like it is here, P-N-E-U-M/O, just know the /O is letting you know you've got your root word, and then that's a combining vowel. Same thing here for respire. This is the combining term. That's why you have the / and the A. That A, again, is your combining vowel. So now you take your root, your combining vowel, and then you see the combining form. So if you just get used to looking at this style, that will help you better prepare throughout the text. Different roots can have the same meaning. So pulmon and pneumonian, or pneumon, there you go, I should say pneumon. Both of these mean lungs. So chances are you've heard the word pneumonia, that's an infection in your lungs. That's because of that root word. Pulmonary tends to also have to do with your breathing, your respiration, your lungs. And so knowing that you might have words that are completely different words but have the same meaning, that's the big thing to remember. Okay, suffix. I said that at the beginning of this chapter, is that the suffix is the word or the part that's tacked to the end of the root word in order to give it a new meaning. It's kind of spreading, it's kind of continuing it, making it where this turns into something else. If the suffix begins with the vowel, there's no combining vowel needed. Just so you know, and I'm going to show you an example, although I still break it down. So pulmonary, actually, that's funny. I think that's the word I just used a moment ago. Pulmonary, pertaining to the lung. And then you have pulmonology. The O is the combining vowel, and L-O-G-Y means study of. That's why anyone who had me and I told you biology is literally the study of life, because bio is life. L-O-G-Y is study. So biology is the study of life. Pulmonology is the study of the lungs. So here, I like to just point out, you can totally use this. Notice pulmonology does not have a prefix. So you just have the root word, the combining vowel, and then the suffix. Not terribly difficult way to remember to do it. It might take you a moment to get the hang of doing it constantly, but if you sit there and every single word you read, you break it up and go, okay, here's my prefix, here's my root word, here's my combining vowel, if it has one, and here's my suffix. It's literally going to help you remember what everything is, because like I said, we already learned pulmon is lungs and logy is study. So you look at the word pulmonology and it means study of the lungs. Here we go. We've got pneumonia. I used this one as a moment ago. The IA, just let you know, it's an infection. And then ation, I also said respiration earlier. There you go. That's another one. So this is just showing you how you break it down. Prefixes do not require a combining vowel. A prefix is a prefix. You just totally tack that prefix to the beginning of the root word, just like they're Legos, and it works. However, not every word has a prefix. So a lot of times there is no prefix. So the ones I used a moment ago to give you an example, no prefix, so don't stress over it. Now here we go, premature. Mature is going to be your root word, pre is your prefix. Pre means before. And so if you're talking about a premature birth, that would be that the baby was born before it was matured. Post-mature, post means after, so later. Most people can remember the pre and the post, so there you go. This was covered in Bio 124, but I think some of you might not have had Bio 124 yet. And we have uni and bi. Unilateral, uni, that is one side of the body. Bilateral means you're split into two, bi for two. So that's literally what the bi stands for. We have peri, epi, and hypo. Peri is going to be around, epi is above, and then hypo is low, below. We talked in Bio 123 about hypo and hyper and iso for osmosis. And if you remember, I told you hypo is low, hyper is high, iso is same. So same kinds of words, it's just learning to put the other stuff together. Natal, like if you ever heard neonatal unit, natal is normally going to be right around the birth. That's, early. Gastric, That's going to be your stomach. That's your gut area. Also bio 124, I talk about that because I talk about gastropods, and pod means foot. And so a gastropod literally means stomach foot. So these are all just ways to break down the words. Micro is small, macro is large. And I already said before that if it ends with CYTE, that is literally just cell. So this is just trying to show you how they all break down. You've got your prefix, your root, and your suffix. This is, they've got the dashes on both sides of the root word, mainly because they're just trying to show you how it all fits together. You can go through any of these words and do it that way. Now, that is how to break apart the word to understand. Remember your prefix, your root, your combining vowel, and your suffix. Now this is talking about word deconstruction. If you're given a word like cardiologist, you should be able to figure it out what it is. Cardio is going to be heart. Ologist is a person who studies something. It's the specialist. So if you see cardiologist, that literally means the heart specialist. A moment ago, I just said that gastric is for your stomach area. So if somebody says that they are a gastrologist, that would be a study of the stomach. I don't know if that's really the name of that one because it sounds really weird, but proper wording, that would be it. But pulmonologist is one that I know you've probably heard of before. That's the person who specializes in lungs. Podiatrist, the specialist in foot, you know, that kind of thing. Okay, so here again, we're just trying to break down the words. We have myocardial. Suffix is AL, which means pertaining to. So you literally have to just memorize what some of these mean. Where you see it has my and then a /O, that's because the O is the combining form for muscle. So the my is going to be muscle, and the root word cardio means heart. So a myocardial is going to basically be the muscles pertaining to the heart. So here you're just looking at it and you learn to break it down. Now here's the big thing, plural. You just have to memorize these, like straight up memorize. I love to give examples and tricks on how to learn stuff, but for the plural, you do not just simply add an S, not in this kind of terminology. So you have to straight up memorize it. So we have our singular ending ends in A or ends in IS. The plural ending can be AE or ES. So if it ends in A, you tack on an E. If it ends in IS, you just change the I to an E. So there you go. I think the way they wrote this is a little odd, but what it's trying to show you is that the singular is axilla and the plural has the AE. Diagnosis is a singular diagnosis, but if you get multiple, then it's a diagnosis. Or diagnoses, I think is how you would say it. And yes, how you say stuff, so important. That's why it's almost laughable I'm teaching this course. Some of the words I am so great at, some you are totally going to hear me just stamper over because, oh my gosh, wording is not my cup of tea. I can break those suckers down. I can tell you how to memorize it. I can tell you how to figure it out. I am not the best at pronouncing. And so this is always also effort for me. This is why I am not ever going to work in the medical field. However, if you're taking this course, chances are you're planning on working in some form of medical field. So you have to practice how to say these words precisely, mainly because one small oops and you actually mean something completely different. So it is imperative that you not only know how to spell these words properly, but pronounce them properly, because you have to make sure you and whether it's the patient or another medical person that you're talking to are on the same page. So we have examples here. Ilium and ilium are both pronounced ilium. However, notice the spelling. The I and the E changes, and that makes them totally different things. This is why when you're taking a quiz, or if you have to write something out for this course and you say, well, isn't that close enough? No. In medical terminology, nothing is close enough. You have to be precise. It takes practice. So the stuff you did when you were in probably elementary school, where you write the words like 20 times, 100 times, whatever, you keep doing it until you get it exact. You might want to do that because you've got the muscle memory. The more you write it, the more it actually sets in your head. And it's hugely important for this. So ilium with an I is a bone in your pelvis. Ilium with an E is part of your small intestines. So if you write the wrong thing down, the patient and or the other medical people who are checking things out will be looking in the wrong area. So very important. Now for the pronunciation. A lot of people are very lazy with how they speak. A lot of people will not enunciate each letter. They kind of slur things together. They make the weirdest little hybrids out of their words. You have to be very careful not to do that for medical. Example they're giving you here, prostate. Prostate is prostate. They even give you the example here, pros and then tate. That is something men have. It's at the base of the male bladder. There is something called prostate cancer. This is something they do need to check on a regular basis. But if somebody is prostrate, as in with an R, that means physically weak, exhausted, that kind of thing. Very big difference if you're telling somebody these examples. So again, pronunciation is key. You have to be very careful. You have to be very precise. Here's another example of some very close ones, hypotension and hypertension. Like I said before, hypo is low, hyper is high. So hypotension means low blood pressure. Hypertension is high blood pressure. World of difference. If you get the wrong one, it could mean a mess up in the medication. And where blood pressure is concerned, that actually could cause somebody to die. So not something to just muck around about. You have to be very careful. You have to be very precise, again, in your writing and in your verbal. So medical terminology is not just something quick and easy and something to just go, it's not that big a deal. That's literally somebody's life in your hands and in your voice. So you have to be very careful. So that was chapter 1. Here's chapter 2. This is just kind of reminding you some basics that you should have learned in Bio 1, 2, 3 and also Bio 1, 2, 4. But like I said, I think some of you are taking this before you're taking Bio 1, 2, 4. And so some of the stuff that I'm going to go over very quickly here, you won't have covered just yet. And suddenly I just had this weird panic that this was not recording. Isn't that funny? Anyway, your body, a body composed of, they're starting at the big part and going down. So when we covered it in class, we started at the base and we started with like atoms, molecules and that stuff. And then we built up to organelles. Organelles are what's in your cells. Anyone who had me for Bio 1, 2, 3 should already remember cells, they're made of organelles. So you have all these organelles that make up the cells. Then you have all these cells that work together to make up your tissues. Then you have all these tissues that make an organ, and then all these organs that work together that make the organ systems, and then all these organ systems make the organism. So you have to basically have an understanding of how all of this works, because if you are covering, say, the urinary system, that's an organ system, you need to know which organs are in there. Most often, people will automatically, hopefully, know that the kidneys are part of this system. So the kidney is an example of an organ, but then you need to understand how the tissues work in the kidneys and stuff like that. So here we go. I already told you CYT is going to mean cell. And so cytology is the study of the cell. Cytologist is going to be somebody who studies or the specialist of the cell. So there you go. Now, here's where we get to a whole bunch of little things that I'm going to kind of go a little quick over. Whenever you see stuff like this, I recommend practicing it. Say it out loud. When you see it all caps and bold, that's where the emphasis is. So cytology. It's not cytology, it's cytology. Fertilization. Those are your key parts. you, and zygote. They have special emphasis because, English, I don't know. But practicing and actually saying these out loud will help you learn how to say these words properly. I love how the text actually broke it down and wrote it in real words instead of using all the little symbols, because I am not great with all the little symbols. I already knew how to say tissue, but when you see it written out as tish, you can't mess that up. So again, practice these, say them out loud. When you say them in your head, it's not the same as when you say it out loud. So even if you think people are going to think you're an idiot, seriously, say these out loud. It will help you learn so much better. Here, just want you to identify the roots in these words, and then letting you know the basic functions of a cell. We talked about this in Bio 1, 2, 3, so hopefully you do remember this. Nucleus, listen to me, nucleus is the largest organelle of the cell. Remember that an organelle is a specialized structure. It has its own special function in the cell, just like the organ has its own special function in the body. Bio 1, 2, 3, you had to learn all about the organelles. You had to label a cell. Hopefully you remember that because you kind of need it for this course. Okay, again, more practicing following these words. And then I wanted to show you again, knowing your parts. So here I broke it down. Cytoplasm, there is no prefix, so I deleted that part. Cyte is cell, O is the combining vowel, and plasm means a living substance or a tissue. So cytoplasm literally means, the tissue of the cell or the cell tissue. There you go. Now, they want you to identify the roots of the following terms. So this I leave up to you. I say go ahead and start breaking these words down. See what you can do. Now we're on to the DNA and genes. Bio 1, 2, 3. I'm pretty sure we covered this. And I know we cover it also in Bio 1, 2, 4. But 1, 2, 3, pretty darn sure I drilled this into your head about a human. Human has the 23 pairs or 46 chromosomes. So that's what this is kind of talking about. This is breaking all of the stuff down. You should remember the stuff about genetics, mitosis, mutations. All of this was covered in Bio 1, 2, 3. We've got the human karyotype. One of these shows a boy, one of these shows a girl. We looked at karyotypes also in Bio 1, 2, 3. So hopefully you remember these. I'm wondering if you guys know which one's boy, which one's girl. I think I'm going to throw that out there as a small extra credit for the lecture assignment. When you do the lecture assignment, if you write extra credit and you tell me which one is the boy karyotype and which one is the girl karyotype, yeah, that's what we'll do. Don't say on the right or on the left. Tell me what makes one a boy and what makes one a girl. That's an extra credit one. Okay, now supposed to identify roots, combining forms of these terms. That means they want you to actually write it down. No, you're not turning this in, but the more you practice this, the better prepared for quizzes and tests you're going to be. Now, genetic medicine. We have different types of medical care based on genetics. When I covered genetics in Bio 1, 2, 3, I actually specified part of this about how you can actually get tested for some of these. It was right before we did the Harry Potter labs. Tissues, organs, and organ systems, primary tissue groups. This gets covered in Bio 1, 2, 4, where we have connective, epithelial, muscle, and nervous. Connective tissue, this is just showing you some of the connective tissue in the knee joint. Making sure you know these. Again, we cover this in Bio 1, 2, 4. And excuse me. And if you take anatomy and physiology, you're totally going to need this. So touching up on these, not a bad idea. Again, practice pronouncing certain words. Now this is helpful. This lets you know the body is made up of 11 organ systems. Learning what the organ system is, the major organs and the major functions, This will help you tremendously. This will help you in this course. This will help you in Bio 124, and this will help you in Anatomy and Physiology. So I would go ahead and jot this stuff down in a little notebook, something you can carry around with you and just randomly read it, practice it, run it through your head. Very good idea. So just going through a few of these. So there we go. La, la, la. All righty. So muscular and skeletal systems, often considered one organ system, known as the musculoskeletal system. Yes, I said that very slowly because I wanted to make sure I did it right. So the muscular system has the muscles, and the skeletal is the skeletal, but your skeletal muscles are what move the skeleton, and that's why they sometimes lump all that together. Yes, I am just kind of scooching through this. Most of this, again, is covered in Bio 124, and it's in your book. You should be reading on these. This is just me letting you know this is stuff you want to definitely freshen up on. Homeostasis, we've talked about this in Bio 123 and in 124, and it basically just means it's trying to keep everything stable. Homey, and then O, that's the combining form because you have to add that O, and stasis is the suffix. This is basically trying to show you the terminology for which part of the body you're talking about. So anatomical directional terms. If somebody is just standing there, you already know your right hand and your left hand. When I taught little 5- and 6-year-old cheerleaders when I was a teen, I told them to just put their hands out. Your left hand makes an L. So anything on that side is counted as left. Presumably, you know your right from your left because you are in college. Bio 124, I make you label a heart and the parts, and on a regular basis, people will get the right and the left confused on the heart because they are writing it from what they're seeing instead of how it would be anatomical term. So just remember, it's always the person's right or left, not yours. Midline, literally straight down the middle. Medial, ME for the middle. Lateral is going out. Distal is always down. Proximal is going up. And then we have superior, which is up, and inferior, which is down. This, when you get to the heart and you're labeling the heart, you will see that there's a superior vena cava, which is the one at the top, and the inferior vena cava, which is at the bottom. This is why. It doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It's just the terms. So learning these terms, being able to define them, very important. Then we have the different planes, and yes, this picture I find really creepy, but it's just letting you know if you were to cross-section somebody, which ways they are. And so frontal plane is going to be the front, transverse is going to be like through the middle, that kind of thing. Practice these, get to understand them, because sometimes this is what's going to be used as a descriptor. And then here, again, it's pointing out a few different ones. Yeah, you can read over these. I told you I'm putting a lot of it onto you because I don't think I really literally need to read every word to you. Everything is showing you the different things. Quadrants, quad is 4, so that means literally it's broken up into 4. And so you've got your right upper and left upper, and you have your right lower and your left lower. The next part for the abdominal regions, that is the one you really need to practice on, because the quadrants, not difficult. Regions, oh yeah, that's going to be the more difficult, because these are the crazy words. Not that they're really crazy words, but it's not the ones we normally think of. But this one, definitely practice. 5 major body cavities. Yes, you want to know your 5 major body cavities. I know when you see the cranial cavity, you're going to be like, what? But that's not empty. I know, because your brain is in there, but that is literally your cranium. This whole area, that the skull, is a giant cavity and your brain goes in there. You've got your spinal cavity because your spinal cord goes down in there. Thoracic cavity, and that's, well, in Bio 124, we talk about the thorax and stuff like that. So that's got your lungs, your heart, that kind of stuff. Anyone who has ever been in choir or in theater, you've heard about your diaphragm, and you sit up straight, work the diaphragm. So that's in here along with your, well, we have the abdominal cavity and the pelvic cavity, and then they put it together to abdominopelvic cavity. So basically you're just putting the words together. Epigastric and hypogastric. Remember, gastric means stomach. We already covered that. Hypo is lower, so hypogastric would be low stomach or below stomach. Final word, just reminding you, you need to understand what all of these words mean. You need to understand the organs, the tissues, the cells, how they connect together, how they work together, because if something's happening over here in the body, it can be affecting something over here. You have to understand that connection. So chapter 3, we're almost done. Functions and structure of the skin. There's a whole lot of reasons we have skin other than it would be really gross if we didn't. Again, this gets covered in Bio 124. So anyone who's taken this course and is next quarter taking Bio 124, you already know a bunch of this. Knowing the functions of the skin, probably a good idea. This is a breakdown of the skin. The epidermis is the very top. Dermis is the thicker part underneath. Hypodermis is below everything. That's where you've got your fat and stuff like that. So yeah. This one, I added my own little words in here because I really thought this was interesting. It says to define the difference in the meaning of the two terms, biopsy and autopsy. Autopsy, I'm sure you've heard of it before. Opsy means view, so biopsy and autopsy both mean view. Auto means self. We've talked before about autotrophs, and that means that they make their own food. So autopsy literally means to see with one's own eyes. I think that's kind of cool. And it's in Bio 123, where I ask you about basal cell carcinoma. So hopefully you already know carcinoma. Following terms, we have dermis, dermatology, epidermis, and epidermal. So clearly derm is your main part there. Some more words to practice. This is showing you the epidermis, the structure of the skin. Not a bad idea to get to know this one and to break it down. Again, identify the root and define the term. You can work on this on your own time. Same with these. Pretty much most of this quarter or term is going to be every time you see a word, just break it down. Break it down into the parts so you can figure out what each thing is. Now this one I added a little more because I do talk about adipose tissue. I believe I do that in Bio 124, and it's always when I'm talking about penguins. But it's because adip means fat and os means full of. And so adipose tissue is tissue that is full of fat. That's actually what the penguin has on their big belly. That's adipose tissue. And that's how they can flop down and slide down all the ice on their stomach and not freeze their organs. So I thought that was cool. And you should also know about the lipid being fat, because you had to, in Bio 123, you had to draw and label the phospholipid bilayer. And so lipid was the fat part. Okay, we've got yet some more terms for you to define. Disorders of the skin. Yes, this is not just learning a few terms and how to break it down. You are also having to learn very specific disorders because you're breaking down the terms. So dermat is the root and itis is the suffix. And so dermatitis is, well, I guess you can't say ick of the skin, but that's pretty much what it is. So then we have, again, you take these words, you've got your prefix, your root word, and your suffix, and you put it all together, and that's how you get your words. Here it's pointing out, notice all four words start with A-L-L-E-R-G. G. The bird started chirping behind me, and I swear it sounded like a machine. And I was like, what in the world? Birds are very loud today. So here you go. They want to know what's the definition of the element gen, because that's what they put in there. And identify the two adjectives from the terms above. What do they have in common? Being able to do this kind of thing is going to help you tremendously. Am I giving you these answers? No, because you should be going through your textbook. And like I said in the welcome thing, I literally cannot give you everything in there. You have to do your part as well. I'm just trying to show you how to move along. Now, I mentioned before about basal cell carcinoma. So here you go. It's one of the types of skin cancer. So malignant melanoma, malignant is bad. When we talked about cancer in Bio 123, we talked about benign versus malignant. And I said, if you have a hard time remembering, that I normally thought of, and I just blanked on her name. It's a bad witch. Angelina Jolie played her in a movie, but for some reason I can't remember the name. Maleficent. There you go. I always ended up thinking Maleficent was evil. She was bad. It made me think of malignant, Maleficent. That's what I did. However, you are supposed to be breaking the word down into pieces. Basal cell, it's literally telling you which part of the cell is infected. And then squamous cell. Squamous is a certain type of tissue that was covered in one of the parts earlier in this PowerPoint that I just said, hey, make sure to learn this. So here, wanting you to define the following terms. We covered all three of these in Bio 123. Hopefully you already have them. Some more disorders of the skin. It's showing you how to break it down, infections, viral infections. These are things you will definitely have to cover. More define the following terms. We've got some fungal infections, and I don't know about you, it's the hair on the toes that I just can't handle here, but there you go. Candida, I always add syllables to that word, is yeast, is a yeast infection, and it's not just only women. Anybody can get this kind of yeast infection because it is something in your body that's kept in check by your natural biota. And when you take antibiotics, it kills off all of the biota in there, even the good ones that are keeping things like the yeast in check. A lot of people end up seeing the thrush like that on the tongue on a baby. We're not talking the whole dietary stuff. I can totally tell you what to do to help with this kind of thing, but this is just letting you know what the fungal infections are and how to, read it. And then we have our parasitic infections. So there we go. And then bacterial infections. Now they want you to look at these words and figure them out, define them, what's the differences. So this is basically learning how to say all of the different things and identify what they are. Here, practice pronouncing. So when they do something like this is a good time to either go back and see if it's been covered in the PowerPoint, or if you're like me and you just want to have it quick and easy, you've got a couple of options. Smartest option, just go to your textbook, look it up in the back. There's a glossary and it has pronunciations in there. That is super easy way to do it. You can also Google the word and then ask it to pronounce it. That's more like this. A lot of times it will get it right, but it will not always 100% get it right. So I would start with looking in the back of your book for the pronunciation and then practice writing it out phonetically, and then say it out loud. The more times you say it out loud, the better you're going to get at proper pronunciation. And see here, it's showing you. These are exactly how your textbook are going to show you how to pronounce these words. So just practice, practice, practice. Accessory skin organs, it's just showing you some more so you can learn about things. Acne, you know, if you're going to be in the medical field, you're going to hear people talk about acne. This is something that drives a lot of people crazy, and there's multiple reasons for it. So understanding what it is helps, and being able to, of course, break it down. Because most people are just going to go, oh yeah, it's just a pimple, but sometimes it's not. And so knowing the difference in all these terms, extremely, extremely helpful. So just more stuff to practice. We're about to get to one of those things that I help you with again. We've got this crazy, crazy, crazy word. Onychomycosis. I thought that was a good one to practice with. If you can learn these words, and by the way, this is going to be your lecture assignment right here. You've got the first, that means nail. So this is your prefix. It's letting you know that this is happening with the nail. The root word is fungus, MYC, that is for fungus. And then osis is an abnormal condition. So by putting these three terms together, and no, there is no connecting vowel, because if you remember before, the combining vowel is needed if you don't have a vowel for the suffix. This suffix has a vowel, so there is no combining vowel needed. This literally lets you know that this is pretty much a fungus infection of the nail. Crazy word, but it breaks it down. So your lecture assignment is to use this kind of system, pick, let's say, at least 3 different words from this chapter, chapter 3, and show me this kind of thing. No, you don't have to have the actual picture of the puzzle pieces, but I want you to break it down and say, this prefix means this, the root word means this, the suffix means this, and tell me how you can use that to identify words. I want to know that you are following the fact that we're breaking it down into pieces. So 3 different words from chapter 3 and break it down in the parts. That is your official lecture assignment for this week. And I gave you an extra credit part as well. Make sure you do exactly what I said. You can get full points. If you go above and beyond, you really go into it, I will give you some extra points. And if you do the little extra credit, you get even more extra points. So be detailed. There you go. All right. We're almost finished. Yeah. Diagnostic procedures. Knowing what these are is extremely helpful. Being able to describe them and break it down, super helpful. Because if you are working in a medical field and you're having to tell somebody that they're about to have a procedure, getting it right, very important. Being able to say it in a nice, calming manner, very helpful, because most people, when they're getting medical procedures, are pretty nervous already. So it's kind of your job to, be nice and help. I would love to know what some of these friggin' birds are. Okay, therapeutic procedures. Bam, we got a whole bunch of stuff here. Dermatologic pharmacology. This is a whole bunch of stuff that they use in order to help deal with some skin issues. Topical means topical. It means you're not taking a pill. It's just on you. Okay, then we've got burns. 1st-degree burn, like a bad sunburn. That happens to me if I go outside pretty much. 2nd-degree burn. This one, you might have a couple of welts. It's really not great. It hurts. And then 3rd-degree burn, these are the really bad things. Yeah. 4th-degree, worse. Destroys all the layers of the skin and can get all the way down through your tendons, muscles, and bones. This is a bad one. So knowing the difference between 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, very important. Rules of 9. Burn patient depends on the extent of the body surface that is affected. So your head and neck are 9% of your body surface. Each arm is 9% of your body surface. Each leg is 18% of your body surface, because if you've ever noticed, your leg is about twice as long as your arm. Yeah. trunk is basically this area. And so anterior is going to be the front, posterior is going to be the back. Pretty sure you know what genitalia is. So there you go. Again, some more word analysis and definitions. Go ahead and practice on these as well. Figure out what each of these are. Talks about wounds and tissue repair, how the scab forms, suturing, and keloids. What you're seeing on this picture, that part on the ear, that's a keloid. If you haven't watched Dr. Pimple Popper, totally should. You'll learn about a whole lot of these things on Dr. Pimple Popper, this and cysts and stuff. You'll learn the difference between a whole bunch of them. It's really fascinating, actually. And she uses a lot of the proper terms, so you can learn on it. What do the following terms have in common? Do you think it might be plasty? Just a thought. Okay, final word. Skin is the largest organ of the body. It is literally all of your skin is one entire organ. It does so much. And so knowing all the different parts about skin is actually extremely important. Your skin is also the first line of defense against almost everything. So you really have to pay close attention to all of that. So that is chapters 1, 2, and 3. I gave you an extra credit thing in there, and I gave you your lecture assignment in there. Make sure to be specific when you do it. If you have questions, send me an email. I will respond. I know somebody has already gotten into the class today, even though it doesn't technically begin until Tuesday, but I'm trying to hurry up and get this up here. Because yes, it is Sunday, just so you know. I guess ask me questions if you have any. Be detailed, do some serious work. Don't think this is going to be a walk in the park. This is a lot of material to cover in only 7 weeks. And it is vocabulary, and it is spelling, and it is pronunciation. So if you have taken a foreign language and you had trouble because you didn't practice enough, remember how hard that was and put that here, because you have to practice. You can't do it last minute, not expect to do right. You have to be able to spell it correctly. Remember the example of ilium and ilium. One letter different between the two, totally different things. So you need to practice, 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 and do not wait till the last minute, because you have to be able to do this. I guess that's it. Let me know if you have questions. If you need anything, hit me up, just send me a message, and I'll answer what I can. And I will see you guys next Monday, June 7th, when my son turns 26. Peace out.